Okay, so we have a blockbuster of blockbuster trades here. In fact, I had to remake this video because I saw that Jalen Ramsey was going to the Steelers and said, okay, that's obviously worth making a video on. I talked about all that. It was taking a little long for the compensation to come out, but I think I said probably a draft pick, and that'll be it. There is more to this trade that we have to break down. Jalen Ramsey is not all the Pittsburgh Steelers are getting. They're also getting Jonnu Smith, who was really good last year. I actually put him on my top 10 tight ends list this offseason. He had a very good season and is a very effective player and is an Arthur Smith favorite. Arthur Smith has always loved what Jonnu Smith brings to the table. Steelers also get a 7th-round pick. They give up a 5th-round pick, and they give up Minkah Fitzpatrick. So Fitzpatrick has now been traded from the Dolphins for a first-round pick to the Steelers, and then he has been traded back to the Dolphins for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith. So I'm not sure if I've ever seen a team trade a player twice like that, trade for a player and then trade that player away to the exact same team. But yeah, very fascinating. So first, when I made that video earlier that I've now had to delete, I talked about how, hey, this is a really good secondary with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have, now, at least on paper, you have Darius Slay, who should be, has always been a consistent player, is someone who still, even at this point, is playing, significant playing time, even if he is 34 years old. And then you have, obviously Jalen Ramsey you're bringing to the table. You have Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I'm assuming they just trust the Thornhill-Elliott combination enough that they're willing to make this move. That feels like that's kind of what it has to be, right? But that's still just a fascinating choice when you are a team a little bit trying to win now, and you're trading away a 28-year-old player who is still a very good player. Now, there's always been discussions on just how good Fitzpatrick is. He is a bit of a ball hawk and sometimes will take the wrong route on a play. That is something that's happened. But ultimately, and again, I think let's just talk about the players involved. Like I said, Jonnu Smith's very good. Fitzpatrick's very good. Jalen Ramsey played over 1,000 snaps last year and was really good in them. So you are getting a great corner. I think just the question you have to ask is this, for the Steelers, I have to imagine they would have rather gotten rid of a pick here, right? Draft pick, but maybe the Dolphins didn't want a draft pick. Maybe they wanted a player who was going to come in and play well right away. The contract things do come into play here. So, again, there's going to be a lot of moving parts. We'll get some more information on exactly how it works. But Jalen Ramsey is expected to get paid $26 million this next year, $26.5 million this next season. I believe it will pretty much all be non-guaranteed at this point. He still has several years left on his deal, I believe, but it'll mostly be non-guaranteed after this, though, so the Steelers can decide what they want to do with that. Whereas for Fitzpatrick, he has 2 years left on his deal, but a reasonable cap hit of $23 million and $24 million for each of the next 2 years for a player of his caliber. That's pretty reasonable. And again, we'll see how much the Steelers are taking on and how much the Dolphins are taking on. But ultimately, listen, there isn't a huge age gap. I see Fitzpatrick is listed somewhere at 28, somewhere at 29. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but he's about a year or two younger than Jalen Ramsey. So the age gap it feels bigger than it is. They're actually pretty similar in that aspect, but it's just interesting. Fitzpatrick is a little bit cheaper, although a lot of people don't view safety as much of a premium position. And the Steelers are getting another player as well. It's just interesting because you just don't usually see these types of trades in the NFL. You don't usually see player for player trades. Usually it's player for pick trades. That is what you get. So that's just fascinating. But ultimately, for the Dolphins, my first reaction is this is just a huge win for the Miami Dolphins, a team that I thought were going to just kind of have to get rid of Jalen Ramsey because he's getting paid and he's getting up there in age. They're able to get a player who should be good for the next several seasons for them in Minkah Fitzpatrick, who, again, ironically, they drafted way back when. They do lose Jonnu Smith, which is no light loss. That's a factor in how they're able to get Fitzpatrick, but still, I do feel like this is a big win for the Dolphins to be able to get a quality player for all of this. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a loss for the Steelers. The Steelers are in a situation where they want to win now, right? And their defense has kind of always been built on it's TJ Watt and some other really good defensive linemen. Cam Hayward's awesome. They have Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. They have other really good defensive linemen. But I do think you see in the playoffs when you get to a team that knows how to, that can deal with a great defensive line, at least survive there. They can pick apart the secondary. Clearly, the Steelers wanted to add corners with Darius Slay and with Jalen Ramsey. And listen, on paper, this should be a really good defense. Even with the loss of Fitzpatrick, this should be a really good defense on paper. And if it is, you just have to wonder how much can the offense make it work, right? We saw the Denver Broncos last year, who had number one defense in football, get to the playoffs, get against a great team. Only so much you can do. Here, excuse me 1 second. Sorry, trying to do this in one take and had to cough, so apologies about that. But we'll just keep going. You also have, but that's kind of the question, right? You can't, I don't think in today's NFL, just be a defensive team. You need at least some offense. So the Eagles had offense as well, right? You kind of need to be either a complete team or a loaded offense to win a Super Bowl. And I don't think they're going to be a loaded offense, so can they be a complete team? Again, so much of it is always going to come down to just what does Aaron Rodgers bring to the table. So, but ultimately, I do think that this is, hey, Jonnu Smith helps. Again, he will be tight end too, and you know how Arthur Smith loves a tight end too. That is something that he definitely likes. But you do have Freiermuth too, so it is interesting that's probably, it's at least a great tight end tandem. I can't. There's some other good ones, but it's certainly up there. It is a great tight end tandem now that the Pittsburgh Steelers have, and I think that's an important piece that they're adding to the table. But ultimately, I'm surprised that the Steelers didn't do whatever they could to make a draft pick instead of Fitzpatrick. I'm just surprised by that because I know how much they like him and he values their system. But ultimately, if they feel like Ramsey's going to give him more, or at least at the same level of Fitzpatrick, and is going to play a more premium position that they have less depth in, they have more depth at safety, at least that's how they feel, and are getting a good tight end out of it, well, then it's not the worst thing in the world. And also worth mentioning, the Dolphins do get a little bit more draft capital as well. I just think it's a leverage thing. Ramsey wasn't going to play for the Dolphins, and I feel like, well, I don't necessarily think the Steelers got worse. I actually do think the Steelers got a little better. I think it still feels like, in a weird way, even if they got a little better, did they actually win the trade? Usually when these trades happen, it doesn't take a player like Fitzpatrick to make it work. But again, maybe they don't. The Steelers have had a tendency to move off of players at the right time. Maybe they don't feel like Fitzpatrick is that type of player anymore. But, it's going to be, I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.